TGIF, everyone, on this pretty Friday morning. There's even a little bit of a hint of fall in the air. I want to share with you some of the projects that I'm going to be tackling this weekend and also answer some FAQ questions you guys submitted last week. Number one, this was really interesting. I loved the nature of this. Someone asked me if I ever felt guilty about making changes in the garden, or I guess ripping out something existing to make way for something new as our gardens evolve. And I really don't feel guilty about that at all. I know that my garden evolves over time, and I know that as I age it's going to have to become lower maintenance. Most of the time when I take something out, it is struggling in one way or another, and it is ripe for a makeover. So not only do I not feel guilty about that, I feel invigorated by the change. So that's one thing. Someone asked me what time I get up in the morning. Well, prior to COVID, I religiously got up about 5 every morning, and I still sometimes do that, but often I sleep later now. I don't know if it's maybe low-level depression or what, but I find it harder to get out of bed during COVID. So there's my real-world, real-life answer to that question. Let me think, what else? Do I ever make my own potting soil? And yes, sometimes I do, and I'm going to do a video on that. In fact, for LVTV, I'm doing a whole series on gardening basics, and the soilless mix that I make typically has a blend of peat moss, maybe coir, some pine bark, composted pine bark, some vermiculite or perlite, and again I will do a video on that a little bit later. Now repeatedly I get asked if I have help in the garden, and I have some help, not a lot. Typically I do most of it myself. But this morning, for example, once a week, I do have some guys come and they do blowing for me. They blow up all of the leaves, and they sometimes will prune things that are too high for me to reach. And I am happy that they do that. This is a friend of mine, and I get her business, and she helps me with some stuff in my garden, and I appreciate it. She's got a landscaping company. So here is another frequently asked question. What is this plant right here? Well, this, you can see that it's reverted to green during the summertime, but this is a golden smoke tree, Cornice. It's in topiary form, and when I planted it, it was already in this form. A friend of mine saw it at a nursery and said I absolutely had to have it. And of course I did. So in the spring when it's in bloom, it just mirrors beautifully all of the early spring green, that limey green that we all like so much. And another question was about crepe myrtle, and would I show how to limb up crepe myrtles, how to do that. And I will do that. I've got a video coming up that we're going to do. This back in here, if you haven't seen it, I did a garden tour of a neighbor of mine, and she had a limbed up burning bush. And this is also a burning bush that I have kind of limbed up. It's in a pot, and it will turn a beautiful color in the fall, and then I will take it out of hiding. Probably the most frequently asked question is, what color is my fence? It is the color, I've answered this before, but I'll answer it again for new viewers. It's the color of the trim of my house, and it is a dark bronzy brown. And I am going to do a video where it's not really a color, you guys, it's a formula. And it's a custom-made formula that I had mixed up in the paint department, and look at how perfectly it echoes the color of the leaves on this crepe myrtle I'm getting ready to pot. And this is a Southern Living plant. Which color is this? Which variety? It is Delta Fusion crepe myrtle. I love these dark leaves and that fuchsia color. And I'll show you that when we do that video. So I do like crepe myrtle, and I have an idea for them. I'm going to do a number of things based on gardening in terms of thinking about the future, and not the distant future so much as the maybe semi-distant future. So in the spring and in the fall. And then a lot of questions about if I do have color, what colors do I use? Well, it depends on what season it is, and in the spring and fall I tend to like, or in the spring rather, I tend to like whites, sorbets, soft, more English colors. And in the fall I like deep, rich, intense umbers and ambers and oranges and reds and golds that are associated with that season. And pretty soon this entire bed is going to explode in that palette. It doesn't look like it right now. There's not a lot of color, though there is tons of texture, but there will be mums and more zinnias, even some light colored hibiscus that will start to bloom, and in the background some tall phlox. But what do I have on my agenda for this weekend? Well, I have waited for it to cool down. You guys think I make promises and then I don't deliver, because I still have not planted anything in this section. I first of all need to repair the brick, and I'm going to do that, but I wanted to wait till it cooled down just a little bit so I could plant some things that hopefully will transition into fall a little bit better. And it's supposed to cool down this coming week, which I am thrilled about. We're going to have highs in the 80s, and so I will tackle that then, and I'll have more time as well. Been doing some pruning this morning. The other thing I'm going to do, which is very fun, I have all sorts of peppers here. I have poblanos and jalapenos and banana peppers, and my friend Kamala at Guilford Gardens, I'll put a link below to her fabulous place on LVTV. We're going to take a tour of it because it's just magical. I got my CSA, which by the way means community supported agriculture, and I reserve my order every other week, and it comes with all sorts of organically grown vegetables and herbs and sometimes flowers. But I have a plethora here of, they're just starting to put on some size, of poblano peppers, one of my favorite. And we eat them stuffed, we eat them lots of different ways, roasted. But my friend Kamala makes a poblano cream that is to die for. So I'm going to see if she will share that poblano cream recipe with me, and it will inspire all sorts of Mexican cuisine. In fact, I'm hoping to do some cooking segments with her. The other project I have, I'm kind of embarrassed to show you because it's gotten so out of control, but my herb bin over here is just exploding, and things are starting to crowd out one another. The basil's going to flower and go woody if I don't harvest it, so as soon as I finish this video I'm going to do just that. And I've got some pineapple sage, and then I'm going to cut some flowers for a weekend flower arrangement. Once that's done, I'll give it another feed so that it will kind of flush out again. And this is that Vitex that I like so much. Always something going on, even in a small garden. You guys are so great about your comments, and I do try to respond to as many of them as I can. The more there are, the more difficult it is sometimes to respond to them. Oh, someone else asked, when do you plant fall bulbs? And you plant them, at least in my area, I typically think about it as a Thanksgiving project, just prior to Thanksgiving. About the second or third week in November is when I plant mine. And I just placed a huge bulb order with color blends. And on LVTV, I described exactly what I ordered. So if anybody wants to copy what I did, what my order was, and what it will look like, hopefully next spring you can do that. Look how pretty that white pops in the distance. You may recall that I had a dahlia in there that expired. Hello, butterfly. That expired because it didn't have enough good drainage. And it's also got some white geraniums and some white calibrachoa in there. So I kind of remedied the drainage issue, and I was able to revive some of the plants in there. I also need to cut back very hard this weekend lots of my senna geraniums, which are they've just gone gangbusters, and I want them to bush out. They're starting to splay a little bit, and I am going to start thinking about autumnalizing these, because I'm going to be doing some social distance entertaining here in the garden once it cools down a bit. I'm so anxious for fall, as I know you are. In another video next week, I'm going to address my stone fireplace. There have been questions about that, and I'll do that in a separate video. And then lastly, some of you have asked, is it too hot to prune boxwood and hollies now? And yes, it is, and no, it's not. It kind of depends on your personal situation. So you can see in the potager, I have pruned about half of it, and then it looked like the temperatures were, and it was able to adapt to the higher temperatures, and then it looked like it was going to get very hot, so I decided to hold off on pruning the rest of it, because yes, the surface foliage then that comes out can be easily burned, particularly when temperatures are extremely high. But when they're not, and if the plant, the boxwood, is in a little bit more shade, it is typically not a problem. But if it's extremely hot, you do want to hold off. Now, I pruned my hollies in the front the other day, and you were asking about that as well. That is in pretty deep shade, and I was just tip pruning. If I'm going to do any really extreme pruning, I will do that in the spring. So that answers that question. And now I've got a question for you. What are you guys going to be doing this weekend? Please share and let me know. Have a great one. Stay safe and stay well.